because you can't just erase him from history. Okay?
Greatest class of all time. There's no class that beats this class.
This is a murderer's roast. All right. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Football Elevated podcast. I am your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mack Bryant. And we are here to discuss the top 10 NFL draft classes of all time. I know that's quite a doozy. It's quite an undertaking. But Mack and I made sure to split up the work. So he's the OG on the podcast. So he took 1967 to 1992. So about a 30-year window. And I took 1992 to about 2017, 2018, just because it's way too early to tell about some of these more recent draft classes. So Mack and I are going to take turns revealing our top 5. We'll start from 5, working our way up to 1. This is 100% subjective. So I'm sure everyone has their own top 5 or top 10. But with no further ado, Mack, what is your number 5 draft class of the we'll say the OG era of the NFL, the golden era of the NFL from 67 to 92?
Yes. Well, first, I love the way we set this up. So the open era, or the common draft era started in 1967. Prior to 1967, the AFL and the NFL both had separate drafts, right? So star players would get drafted in both the AFL and the NFL. Starting in 1967, the merger wasn't final until the 1970 season. But starting in 1967, they had a combined draft. They were competing for players. Mm-hmm. Salaries were skyrocketing in that time, and they couldn't have that. So that's what drove the merger. They merged the drafts. 1967 was the first combined draft, common draft between AFL and NFL. So that's where we started. And I've got the first 25 years. Khaled's got the next 25 years, and then like you said, the last 10 years still are TBD, right? We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
So that'll exclude guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey.
These classes are 17 and 18 class were stacked, but they're not in this yet.
Exactly.
Not just yet.
So
if
we're doing this in another 10 years, then we can talk about those.
It'll be different. And who knows, maybe we'll be talking about 2027, that all the hubbub is that 2027 is going to be a great class, but they haven't done anything yet. But a class that did do something, my number 5, is the 1985 class. So this class you said it completely subjective. So you've got accolades, but you've also got depth of class. And in this particular class, they produced pass rushers. There are 7 pass rushers that have 150 sacks or more. 3 of the 7 were drafted in 1985. Bruce Smith, the all-time sack leader in 1985, as well as Chris Dolman, as well as Kevin Green. So you've got those 3 guys all with 150 plus sacks, all in the same class. Bruce was the number 1 overall. But the jewel of the class, of course, is Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice is the not only is he the best wide receiver of all time, he is a very, 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 in my opinion, strong case for the greatest player of all time, the GOAT of GOATs, regardless of position. He was in the 85 class. He went 16. You also have Randall Cunningham, who doesn't get nearly enough credit for being the great player that he was. He finished second in the MVP voting 3 times. So that's how good he was. So you've got the pass rushers. You've got 5 Hall of Famers in total. Andre Reed was in this class as well. So Hall of Famers: Rice, Bruce Smith, Chris Dolman, Andre Reed, Kevin Green. You've got even the depth I like in this class. You've got Mark Bavaro, two-time Super Bowl champion, stud tight end, iconic player. Bill Fralick, who he played tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, so that's witness protection coming from an Atlanta Falcon fan. But he was a strong player, 2-time first-team All-Pro. So you've got 2 players, Smith and Rice, are Mount Rushmore in their positions. And then you've got 5 Hall of Famers in total and some good depth as well. So 1985 is my number 5 class.
Is there anyone that you think is on the outside looking in for the Hall of Fame, but may eventually get in?
Well, a lot of Lions fans like Lomas Brown, who was also in this class. He's a first-team All-Pro once, 7-time Pro Bowler. He played for a long time, and he was a great player. So he's He's on the edge. I'm not sure if anybody else is that close besides Lomas, but
Okay.
You've got and they edged out. I don't know if we're going to do honorable mentions, but I struggled with this one
if we have
because
time, I think we'll do it.
I struggled with this one because there was a couple classes that could have fit right in that 5 slot as well, but I went with 85.
So many.
So many.
As we're going through this, I want to petition Football Reference because that's my Bible. That's where I got all my information.
Yes.
They're very helpful. They have the All-Pro first team column in the draft classes.
Oh my! I know exactly where you're going with this.
I need an All-Pro second team. I need an AP2 column or an AP combined because to me, obviously there's great distinction in being a first team All-Pro.
Right.
But there's 32 teams. If you're a wide receiver, there's 200 guys playing your position, whatever. If you're the second best or fourth best, third best wide receiver, that counts too. To me, it's like,
my goodness.
You know what I'm saying? All-Pro is All-Pro. If you're first team or second team, it's a very small distinction. So I think they need to add that.
100%. I actually, to be honest, I sent them a message and asked them for that at one point.
Did you? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because I don't know who they listen to, but the thing about it, think about this. Tom Brady, everyone's GOAT, all-time greatest quarterback of all time. He was a first-team All-Pro 3 times. Yeah. 3 times. So it's just, there's only one of them. And there's 30, just like you say, there's 32 teams. Being an All-Pro matters, either first or second team. And then there should be an easy way for us to pull that out. So 100%. Yeah. I'm with you.
Exactly. I mean, the NBA doesn't, they don't like differentiate. They just say he was a all-NBA guy. If you want to parse it, first team, second team, third team, whatever. Yeah. No, all-NBA is all-NBA. It matters for the salaries. It matters for all that. All-Pro, I know it doesn't affect salaries as much, but it is a big deal.
100%, right there with you.
So we went on a little tangent there, but so my number 5 is the 2001 draft class. So
that's a nice class.
So the their Pro Bowl nods 111 total, All Pro selections 22. They had the MVP. They have one MVP in this class, LaDainian Tomlinson, and the Hall of Famers. There's Drew Brees, LT, Steve Hutchinson, and Richard Seymour. Maybe Justin Smith gets in eventually. The Cowboy. I don't know if he gets in there or not. But this was a very deep class in terms of like Hall of Very Good. So you got, Michael Vick,
Mike Vick.
Yeah, your boy Mike Vick, who, personal off-field stuff aside, he is a Hall of Famer, or he would have been a Hall of Famer, I should say.
Well, possibly.
You got Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, Todd Heap, Kyle Vanden Bosch, Ocho Cinco, iconic player, Chris Jenkins, Matt Light, Adrian Wilson, and Steve Smith Sr., the iconic wide receiver that maybe gets in the Hall of Fame.
Well, so you got a couple borderline guys. I mean, Steve Smith Sr., Reggie Wayne, those two guys you hear a lot about fans wanting them to be in the Hall of Fame. And they're certainly close given the all-time numbers. So there's 4.
I know they're harsh on wide receivers. It seems that, in the selection committee, I feel like they're very, very harsh when it comes to these guys. And it's probably going to get even harder with some of the numbers that some of these dudes are putting up.
It's going to be super hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at the pipeline, again, tangent. You look at the pipeline of wide receivers that could be, because it's just the guys in the league now that could be Hall of Famers. You've got Evans, you've got DeAndre Hopkins, you've got Tyreek, you've got, who am I missing? Adams.
You mentioned Stephon Diggs in the past.
Diggs,
as a possible,
so those are 5 guys that are legit Hall of Fame candidates right now without playing any more snaps. And then you've got guys like that you might want to project like Jefferson and like Chase.
Yeah.
Who knows, JSN. So if you're a guy who's waiting, if you're Steve Smith now, if you're Reggie Wayne now, and
you're getting nervous,
right? And Julio's not in yet,
Not yet, yes.
So because he's not eligible yet, so it's going to be tough to get in as a wide receiver.
All right. Over to you for your number 4.
My number 4 is the 1989 class, and this class, I can't. At the top, there can't have been another class that was better than this one. It's just the first 5 picks, you've got 4 Hall of Famers and possibly the biggest draft bust of all time at the same time. So you've got, at number 1, you've got Aikman, who, the trigger man for the Cowboys dynasty. At number 3, you've got Barry Sanders, 10-time All-Pro. 6-time first-team All-Pro, Barry Sanders. 4th all-time,
Strong
I believe, in
case
rushing.
for best running back of all time.
Strong case for best running back all time. I don't know that there's a case to keep him out of Mount Rushmore. I mean, I'll fight you online if you say that Barry Sanders is not one of the top 4. So he's the number 3 pick. The number 4 pick was Derek Thomas. And he's got the single game sack record. He sadly was the only active player to pass away and then later be in the Hall of Fame. So that's his sad distinction, but he was obviously a great, great player. And then at number 5, you've got Deion Sanders, another Mount Rushmore, another GOAT of his position type player, all in the first 5 picks. And then sandwiched between all of that, you've got Tony Mandarich at number 2, who was the incredible bulk. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at the time as the greatest offensive line prospect ever. He started 60 games over 6 seasons. 3 seasons, had like a 5-season hiatus due to issues related to issues. And then he came back and actually played 3 more years for the Colts. But you've got those guys. And then later, a little bit further down the countdown, so to speak, Steve Atwater, Hall of Famer. Andre Rison, not a Hall of Famer, but a strong player. Carnell Lake was a strong player. Yeah. And then you talked about guys who were snubbed. Steve Wisniewski's in this draft. And for me, he is one of the biggest Hall of Fame snubs going. He is an 8-time All-Pro, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 8-time All-Pro, all-decade player who's still not in the Hall of Fame, and it's now been 25 years. I think he's now moved into the seniors class. I think this past class might have been his last year to get in during the modern, but he is. So there's 5 guys who are actual Hall of Famers, and then he, to me, is a 6th guy who should be a Hall of Famer. But I think the 89 class, they're not as deep as some of these other classes, but the fact that they've got two, but possibly 2 of the best players to ever play their position. With the Sanderses.
The Sanders brothers.
The Sanders brothers with Deion and with Barry puts them at number 4 for me.
Yeah. And it's funny that we talked about the All-Pro thing. Troy Aikman was never first-team All-Pro.
Never first-team All-Pro.
He's playing in the era of Montana and Young and some of these other guys. So you can't fault these guys for not being the first-team All-Pro.
No, you can't. You can't.
But absolutely stacked.
Yes.
All righty. I will go with my number 4, and that is the 2007 draft class. So talk about, an absolute murderer's row of Hall of Famers. So unfortunately, it starts off with perhaps the greatest draft bust of all time in Jamarcus Russell, especially because he went number
Raider,
1. I know,
Raider guy.
Yeah, exactly. But listen to this top 5. I mean, the top 5 is not great, but it's Jamarcus Russell, Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, and then Gaines Adams and Levi Brown. So 3 of the top 5 are busts.
Yes.
But in the first round alone, you've already got 4 Hall of Famers. So it's 2007. A lot of these guys are just barely becoming eligible. Joe Thomas, obviously, Patrick Willis, Darrelle Revis, Alvin Johnson, and then you've got Adrian Peterson, who's probably already got fitted out for his gold jacket.
Oh,
going in. I think he's eligible next year, 2027.
I think you're right. He should have been eligible like 5 years ago, but he kept coming back.
Yeah, he just kept coming. He's just one of those guys that just he ended up on, I think, 6 different teams, which is insane for a player of his caliber. But, somewhere out there, someone has a Seattle Seahawks Adrian Peterson jersey, and they probably...
Or Redskins, Washington Redskins.
Yeah, or Saints or Cardinals. Just so many teams that he just made these cameo appearances on. But he did it for the love of the game. But some of the other greats on this in this draft, you've got Marshawn Lynch, who I don't know if he makes it to the Hall of Fame, but just an iconic.
Yes.
Maybe eventually he's over 10,000 yards. So I don't know.
Well, you know what? I wonder. He's an interesting case in the sense that as the game continues to move away from the bell cow running back, the guy running back, maybe history will view what he did differently, because he was in an era where guys didn't get touches like that. So his 10,000 and his achievements in his era might end up standing out when we look back to it back on history. Right now, we're comparing it to guys who used to get 400 carries in a season. The guys don't get that anymore. So he may look really good as a back in the era that he did it. So we'll see.
Yeah. And he's a very likable guy. I mean, we know that matters when it comes to folks voting.
Yeah.
He's iconic,
Yes.
Great nickname, all that good stuff.
Still visible, visible in the media. Still visible in the media, which matters as well.
Yeah, one of the best runs in playoff history with the Beastquake and all that. So, yeah. But we've also got John Beason, Joe Staley, Eric Weddle, Ryan Khalil, Jacoby Jones, may he rest in peace, and Marshall Yanda. So a strong class.
Another future Hall of Famer. Yanda is a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there you go. So we've already got 4 in so far. 5 is a guarantee. Maybe another 2 with Lynch and Yanda. When in a few years, maybe not first ballot for those guys, but very, very strong class. All right.
Yeah.
Over to you for number 4.
Number
3. Sorry, you're number 3.
Yes. My number 3 is the 1988 class, and this class is it's got depth and it's got greatness at the top. So in this class, Randall McDaniels in this class, he is a 7-time first-team All-Pro, All-Decade. He is in the conversation for Mount Rushmore in terms of guards or interior offensive linemen. He was one of the best to ever do it primarily for the Vikings. Tim Brown is in this class. So Heisman Trophy winner, 9-time Pro Bowler, I'm not sure if he was first team All-Pro ever, but he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
He played in the Jerry Rice, Sterling Shepard era.
Yeah,
come on, it's hard.
It was tough. It was
hard
tough.
To be first team.
Thurman Thomas is in this class, so he's the Hall of Famer, MVP in 1991, 2-time first team All-Pro, 4-time AFC champion. Sore spot for the Bills. Eric Allen, who's a newish Hall of Famer. I think he got in last cycle, not this past one, the last one. So he's a Hall of Famer. Michael Irvin is in this class. In 1988, as well as Dermontti Dawson, who's another one of the best interior linemen to ever play, all-decade guy as well, 6-time first-team All-Pro as well. Neil Smith is in this class, so he's a all-time sack leader. Well, not all-time, but he's had over 100 sacks, so
he's up there.
A big deal. He's up there. Bill Romanowski's in this class. James Hasty, Ken Norton Jr. The better Perry, Michael Dean Perry, is in this class. The better Perry brother, the lesser known but the better Perry brother is in this class. He's people don't even talk about him. He's a 2-time first team All-Pro. He was a much better, not just a little bit better. He was a much better defensive tackle than his brother was. But everybody knows the fridge, and nobody knows Michael Dean Perry. The number 1 overall pick was a bust. Andre Bruce who's the guy who went number 1 overall. He had 40 starts for the Falcons and some other teams, so he didn't do much. But the class itself was deep. 6 Hall of Famers and definitely some all-timers in that as well.
Yeah, you brought up the 100 sack mark. So I don't know if we talked about this in a previous podcast, but I wonder, is that? I know that it seems like kind of like a benchmark. I know there's guys that have over 100 that are not in yet.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is eventually going to be raised to 120 or something like that? Given how much teams pass now?
Yeah, I think it's going to go up. 2 reasons. Well, teams pass more. Then you also have the fact that there's more games now. So it used to be that a 20 sack season was the standard, and it still is. I mean, that's a great season still, but when they go to 18 games, 20 sacks is not going to feel like a big deal. I mean, Deacon Jones had 2, if not 3, 20 sack seasons in 14 game seasons. So 20 in 18 games is not going to feel like as big a deal. And I think that 100, you're probably right. That 120 now would be the new 100 over some time. At the same time, you know what? Look at the way that the league treated Myles Garrett. I wonder if they're going to even it may be that you just can't go that high anymore because they're not going to allow it, right? I watch teams almost lose the game.
Quadruple team?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were willing to, they were so interested. Speaking of I think he played the Bills late in the year specifically. The Bills and then the Steelers, I think, were one of them too with Aaron Rodgers. And they seemed so interested in making sure he specifically didn't get a sack that they were letting other guys go off. So,
exactly.
Maybe, so maybe, who knows, maybe it won't change. Maybe guys won't get 25 sacks, like, because he started that season and you thought he might get 30.
Yeah.
And then he had it felt like he had 2 sacks in the last 5 games of the year.
Yeah, they were definitely keying in on him.
Yes.
I think it was Cincinnati where he broke the record against them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the fourth quarter, they were doing everything they could. I mean, it was a meaningless game for Cincinnati. They probably just didn't want to be on the highlight reel when he broke the record.
Mm-hmm.
I get what you're saying. The teams are
but back to your original point. But back to your original point, I 100% agree with you. I think that 100 used to be the line. And I think it's going up at some point. Like a guy like Neil Smith, it's got 104. He's not in. And his chances aren't getting better. They're getting lower of getting in.
Yeah. It's got to be like, if you break 100, it's got to be paired with some other, unimpeachable parts of your resume, all pro selections, turnovers, whatever, something like that.
Or you could be like Watt and Garrett and do it fast, right? I mean, they're both over 100, and they both got there 7 or 8 seasons, so
that's a good point.
100, 100 in a short period of time is really impressive. And they both have done that.
You're not just compiling stats at that point. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So for my number 3, I went with the 1998 draft class. So this
that's a good one.
4 Hall of Famers. So it starts off strong with Peyton Manning at the top, followed by a guy who used to be the biggest draft bust of all time until Jamarcus Russell came around, and Ryan Leaf. But you've also got Randy Moss, who makes a case for the best wide receiver of all time, if you ask certain people. Charles Woodson, who is maybe not the best corner of all time, but the best defensive back, overall.
Both of the Woodson brothers have that case.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's right. And Alan Faneca. So he is an interior offensive lineman, the guard from Pittsburgh. So you were really, really good if you're an interior offensive lineman and you've made it. You're just head and shoulders above the rest. Some other notable players, you have a 10,000-yard rusher in Fred Taylor, who is, the Hall of Very Good, I think.
Hall of Very Good.
And then you've got Randy Moss, obviously the 10,000-yard receiver, and Hines Ward, who some people are pushing for the Hall of Fame. Not totally sold.
Very good. Another very good. Not at all sold on that. Hall of Very Good.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you've also got Leonard Little, Takeo Spikes, a very iconic linebacker, and Pat Surtain, who was a very good defensive back, who unfortunately has been surpassed by his son, I think.
Oh, he'll be the second best player in the family. Yeah.
Yeah. He probably already is. I think
probably.
His son got a defensive player of the year. It's hard to argue that. But it's a class that has, depending on who you ask, the best quarterback of all time, the best wide receiver of all time, the best defensive back of all time, and maybe the best guard of all time in Alan Faneca.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
that's hard to say, but
that's a strong class.
Yeah.
It's a strong class.
All right.
So this is now my number 2.
Yeah. Your number 2.
My number 2, I'm going old school. 1969.
Oh,
1969.
Right. I'm pulling it up here as well, just so I can,
Okay. All right.
Just so our listeners know, we did not reveal our rankings beforehand. So this is all, off the cuff here.
Yes. So 1969, this has greatness at the top of it, meaning the best players of the draft, and also a lot of depth as well. For me, the best player in this draft is Mean Joe Greene. Number 4 overall, the first pick of the Chuck Noll era, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, the cornerstone, the heart and soul of the Steelers dynasty of the 1970s. He's a 1969 draft pick. Ted Hendricks is in this draft.
The Matt
folks
Stork.
might not know
great nickname.
At Stork. or Kick Him in the Head Ted is another one of his nicknames.
Yep.
So great. He played for the Raiders. He's well known for the Raiders, but he also played for the Packers and the Colts. I think he won 4 Super Bowls. I was a 4-time first-team All-Pro, but also he was one of the last before the outside linebacker as edge rusher. So he's someone who both rushed the quarterback and played in coverage. So he has 60 career sacks and 26 career interceptions, and I believe that there's nobody else in the history of the NFL
that has that
that
ever
many.
happened.
Right, that has over 25 interceptions and 60 or more sacks, or even probably 50 or more sacks with 25 interceptions. I don't think it's happened. So that's Hendricks. Charlie Joyner is in this class. And another thing you'll notice in this class, lots of HBCU players. This was right when the league was starting to finally look at that as a viable place to find great players. So Charlie Joyner is one of those. He retired in '86 as the all-time leader in catches and yards. Wow. He was, he's a Hall of Famer. Ken Riley, another HBCU player from FAMU, Florida A&M, who has got one of the quirkiest stats that I can think of. He is a one-time first-team All-Pro, but never made the Pro Bowl.
There's a few of those guys.
Yeah. So he
like
never made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
He never made the Pro Bowl. He's a one-time first-team All-Pro, and he retired with 65 interceptions, which is in the top 5 all time. But he just made the Hall of Fame like in 2020 or something. But he's a Hall of Famer. Roger Worley, who was a longtime St. Louis Cardinal corner. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro. He's a Hall of Famer. But the number one pick in this draft was O.J. Simpson. Yeah. And
I didn't know if you were going to leave him off on purpose or not.
No, I'm not going to leave him off because that's, you know what? Let's talk about this. So it is undeniable what O.J. Simpson did on the field. It is incorrect and is dishonest to leave him off of rankings of the best players to ever play. He was clearly that. There's no argument that he wasn't that. I guess the challenge is, how do you acknowledge that without minimizing what came after? And what came after was the revelation that he's a horrible human being, to put it mildly. But that guy, obviously he could play. He still probably has the best single season, in my opinion. He has the best single season that a running back has ever had.
2,000 yards in 14 games, right?
Yeah, 2,000 yards in 14 games. What makes it even more impressive to me is that the Bills either didn't or couldn't run the football that year, or pass the football that year. Their team had 900 yards of passing that entire year. 900 yards. That means, and the Bills weren't a bad team. They ended up 9-5 that year. So this is a winning football team that can't pass, that everyone knows they're not going to pass. And this guy was still able to get 2,000 yards in 14 games, which is still the record for yards per game. It's 143 yards a game, which is still the all-time record for that. So he was the MVP. He was the Offensive Player of the Year that year. There was, the only seasons that match with that, I think LaDainian 2006 matches with that. I think Adrian Peterson 2012, 8 months, 2,097 yards, 8 months after blowing out his knee is comparable to that. But those are the only 2 running back seasons that are in the vicinity of OJ 73. Yeah. So he's in this class. In terms of, you mentioned guys who may be Hall of Famers. Bob Kuchenberg is an offensive lineman in this class who was on the 72 and 73 Dolphins. And not only was he a good player, but one of the significances of that, being a lineman on that team, is they blocked for the first set of running backs the first team who had 2,000-yard backs in the same season. Wow. So that was Larry Zonka.
I don't know if we'll ever see that ever again.
Well, and we've seen it. We've seen it. It happened, I want to say, at least twice, maybe let me see. So Zonka and Mercury Morris did it in 72, I think it was. Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer did it in the mid-70s. I'm not sure if any of the Niners did it, but Michael Vick and Warwick Dunn did it one year.
Okay. That might be how we end up seeing it with Lamar.
Like Lamar and Derrick Henry could do it. Something like that. But it's happened 5 times. But the first time was the Dolphins in the early 70s, and Kuchenberg was part of that line. And then you've got guys a little bit further down in terms of quality. Bill Bergey, who was a linebacker for the Bengals and the Eagles, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. L.C. Greenwood, who's another guy that Steeler fans talk about as a Hall of Fame snub, 2-time first-team All-Pro. Problem with L.C. Greenwood's issue, not his issue, but the issue with his candidacy, is that 5 of his teammates are already in the Hall of Fame. 5 of his defensive teammates.
You're going to just put everybody in from the steel curtain, I guess.
Right, exactly. So, there's 10, I believe there's 10 players in total from the 70 Steelers in the Hall of Fame. 5 of them play defense. So it's a valid question to ask whether the 6th best defender on the team could be a Hall of Famer. I mean, it's...
I want to touch on the OJ thing for sure. I mean,
okay.
I feel like the difference between OJ and a lot of these other guys that have, the checkered past or whatever you want to call it, the bad deeds off the field, is that there was almost it's almost like it was 2 OJs. He benefited from the things that he did happening so like long after his career ended that people that were around to remember him as the player can kind of memory hold that and just be like, okay, I remember OJ the player, I remember OJ the Heisman winner, I remember OJ at USC, all that stuff, the all-time great. And then it's almost like he became a different person.
Yes.
Long after retirement. People might say it was the CTE, the repeated head trauma, whatever it might be that led to, some of these things. And I feel like these days we lack nuance in a lot of ways on social media and things like that. But I think you can uphold the records, honor the achievements that he did on the field without honoring the person, right? Like they're not going to be retiring his number. I don't know if he's in the Bills Ring of Honor. I don't know if you can like retroactively remove him.
Well, that's the thing. That's an active conversation because he was in the Ring of Honor in the old stadium. They're opening a new stadium. And now there's a debate whether they will put him in that. Well, they will continue to keep him there because now they have to make another decision, right? They made the first decision. They would have had to make another decision to take his number down. But now they have to decide whether to put it up in the new stadium. And as far as I know,
maybe it's like
the decision hasn't been made yet.
Maybe it's in a tucked away in like I'm sure they'll have some sort of exhibit. All these new stadiums do something like that for the fans, like a mini museum type thing. So maybe they show that because you can't just erase him from history. But obviously with everything that came out after, it's not it's not a great stuff. But he's a fascinating character, like in NFL history. We've done a couple segments on him. I mean, he's not directly responsible, but he's, tangentially responsible for the birth of the 49ers dynasty in the 80s because they traded for him and they sucked and it ended up leading to them hiring Bill Walsh. And then on the other side, the Bills, they trade him away and they get a bunch of picks that, there's a few dominoes that fall, but that gets them, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, all these guys. So just like an incredible like butterfly effect type player in NFL history. So
and I love it's an interesting conversation. And this is part of the reason why I love what we're doing is when you do long form, you have a chance to have nuanced arguments, right? You don't have to make your case in 60 seconds. And
exactly.
The question is, if we love the history of the game, right? So part of the history is telling it as it was, good and bad. And in the case of O.J. Simpson, he questionably one of the best running backs to ever play. And were it not for the second act of his life, he'd probably be considered higher on that list, right? I mean, I think there's a cost, there's a risk when you put OJ on lists right now because you've got to deal with that smoke when you do it as well. At the same time, like I said, I like the opportunity to not just with OJ, but with all the things to do with the NFL, to talk about what happened and how should we frame it. You say you can't erase him, but that's effectively what the Commanders have done to their old owner. Their old owner, George Preston Marshall, was an open and proud racist. He was the last team. He owned the last team to integrate in the NFL, and they only integrated because President Kennedy threatened to kick them out of their stadium, which was sitting on federal land, if they didn't integrate.
What year was that?
That was 1962. So the league was reintegrated in 1946. Is that right? 1946 was the first year of reintegration. Most teams didn't reintegrate then. They trickled in. It was most of them that were in the league then reintegrated around 1950, 1951, 1952. That's when most of the teams reintegrated. The Redskins were the last, and it was 1962. And the reason I bring it up is because they have erased, he was someone who was in their Ring of Honor. And they have erased, my understanding is that they've erased all mention of him in the Commanders Stadium. There is you can't find on their website, in the stadium, you can't find any mention of George Preston Marshall, the guy who owned the team, the guy who founded the team. So that's another response to it. Now, it's not, he did found the team, but he was he was a bad human being. And not only was he bad, he was so bad that that he would rather his team lose than be integrated. I mean, they literally were the worst team in football for the period between when the league integrated and when he integrated, when their team integrated. He literally preferred to lose than to have black players on his team. Yeah. So it's interesting how and I think it's important that we capture that, right? That we don't, because if you erase it, okay, there's the set of people who were there that heard the story of why he was being removed from the stadium. But then the next generation won't know anything about it, right? They won't know that he even existed. And I think it's important for us to know that he did exist and to put his history in the proper context, which is he was foul, and he was he was a key reason why the league banned black players and kept them banned for as long as they did. He was a strong advocate for that. And if you erase that, then then the people don't get to hear that, and they don't get to see patterns reemerging that might be reemerging with respect to that. So that's the danger of erasing history.
Completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like there's a difference between celebrating someone and telling their story, especially if it's an integral part of, the history of not just the Commanders or Washington, whatever, but the league in itself, right? Like that is it's an ugly story that needs to be told, but it does need to be told, and I think that approach of trying to erase that from history is bad. I mean, it's not to say that what OJ did isn't terrible, but I feel like it's a different thing in that what OJ did was a crime that he committed off the field, maybe multiple crimes, I forget exactly, but it's something that he did, on his own time, and he, paid or I guess he didn't pay his debt to society completely, but something that he paid for and will continue to pay for. As far as George Preston Marshall, it's like he was making decisions that actively impacted the history of the NFL, of his team, and obviously negatively impacted. And it was a part of a larger societal problem that still continues to exist, just in a different form.
Right.
So I completely agree with you. I don't like that approach of let's just whitewash it, erase it from history. I'm not saying you should put a statue of him, outside the stadium, but if there is a club museum, at this, the new ballpark or whatever it is, there needs to be a mention of, hey, this was the guy who founded the team, and these are some of the terrible things that he did. Let's not forget. But I'm sure he did some good things at the same time. Not everyone's not defined by, one act or another. So yeah, I'm with you.
I'm sure that we'll do a whole series of episodes on that one.
Yeah. I mean, there was a more recent example. I forget his name, but the owner, I think it was Jerry Richardson, the owner of the Panthers, was essentially forced to sell. I believe for similar things. I don't remember if it was sexual misconduct or like.
Well, you had a couple of those. Daniel Snyder was also forced to sell his team. So for his was more related to his conduct and his league's conduct around women.
Like that. Yeah. And his story should be told too, as a cautionary tale. Like, hey, if it doesn't matter how much money you have, hopefully there are some consequences for the things that you do.
Yes. All right. So that was so big tangent, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to deep dives. 69. Exactly. There's a lot of depth. You've got Mean Joe Green, who for me is defensive tackle Mount Rushmore. Actually, I would have him number one. You could argue that Aaron Donald is also in that conversation, but I have him number one. Ed Hendricks, if you're talking about off-ball linebackers, outside linebackers, he's in that conversation. And then Hall of Famers Riley and Joyner and Worley, and of course, O.J. Simpson, deep class, great class at the top, great players really through 10 or 11 or 12 depth in that class.
Yeah. Great players with some great nicknames, which that's a lost art, but that's a different podcast.
Yes, it is.
All right. For my number 2, I'm going a little more recent. I'm going with the 2011 draft class.
Yes. Classic.
This is a murderer's row. So obviously 2011 is pretty recent. So no Hall of Famers yet, but there could be up to 7 or 8, I think, eventually. So we've got,
I think you're right.
Some of the slam dunks. You've got Jason Kelsey, just unimpeachable resume, bunch of all pros, first team all pros, important to note. J.J. Watt is in. Cam Hayward is likely in at some point. Von Miller, Julio Jones. We're already up to 5.
Julio.
And then you've got a couple other guys in Patrick Peterson and Tyron Smith, who
Pat Pete,
may be there. Peterson, I think, suffered from being on some bad teams in Arizona, and his name gets kind of lost in the defensive back shuffle. If you look at his resume, I mean, I'm relying a lot on the Pro Football Reference. They have their Hall of Fame monitor and stuff, and he's got a good case. And then, of course, Tyron Smith, one of the best left tackles of this generation. I think we'll probably get in. So we've already up to 7. We've got an MVP in Cam Newton, who's not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of Very Good. Had a great peak.
Yes, I would agree.
Some other greats, 3 guys over 100 sacks in Cam Jordan, Justin Houston, and Robert Quinn. And then you've got 3 other guys in Richard Sherman, Mark Ingram, and A.J. Green, who are 3 very good players. I don't know if A.J. Green gets in. He's over 10,000 yards. I don't know if Richard Sherman gets in. He might just be like just a notch below the Hall and the gold jacket. But he's another guy, iconic, very visible in the media, very well-liked, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they got to put one guy in. I think Earl Thomas kind of talked himself out of that. There's the other fella, I'm forgetting his name, but he had his off the field issues.
Cam Chancellor was another. The 3 big guys on that secondary. It was Sherm, it was Cam Chancellor, and it was Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
So I think Sherm's getting in. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's 7, probably 8 Hall of Famers in that group.
Crazy. Yeah. And the top 5, it's interesting, right? All these great players, the top 5, you got Cam, Vaughn goes number 2, AJ Green goes 3. Marcel Darius goes 3. He was good for a little bit. He did get an All-Pro, so still a solid pick, good value at that position. But it was just a terrible quarterback draft. That definitely hurts a little bit. I think Jake Locker was the top quarterback, and then you've got Aldon Smith, who was one of the great what ifs in NFL history. Yeah, just an incredibly dominant player who was on a Hall of Fame track, but unfortunately, derailed himself with his off the field issues. But, in terms of impact in a short period, it's really hard to argue against him as like one of those top cases. So yeah, he was very, amazing. Very deep, very strong class.
Yeah. All right. So in my opinion, I have the number 1 class, the greatest class of all time. There's no class that beats this class, the 1983 class. And of course, the 1983 class is legendary. It was so legendary that they did a 30 for 30 just on the first round of the 1983 class, right? So you've got, of course, the quarterbacks. Elway goes number 1 overall, forces a trade from the Colts to the Broncos. But Jim Kelly also goes in that round. Dan Marino goes number 27 in that round. So you've got 3 Hall of Fame. And people forget about this. I think our last podcast, we talked about situations. Dan Marino's team in 1982 went to the Super Bowl. The team that drafted Dan Marino in 1982 went to the Super Bowl. So the cupboard was not bare at all when he stepped into it. But of course, he took it where he took it. So you've got those 3 guys. You've got Kelly, who actually didn't play right away, right? He went to the USFL before he got so. But what people forget about this class, the number 2 overall pick is Eric Dickerson in this class. So he had the greatest start to a running back career ever. I think he had something like 8,000 yards in his first 5 seasons, but never won an MVP, including in his 84 season where he ran for 2,105 yards, couldn't win the MVP that year because Dan Marino was busy throwing for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. So Eric Dickerson, as great as he was, never won an MVP, won Offensive Player of the Year twice, I believe. You've got Bruce Matthews in this class. 7-time first-team All-Pro, 14-time Pro Bowler, Bruce Matthews, first-team All-Pro at center and at guard, one of the greatest interior linemen of all time. Darrell Green is in this class. He was in the first round right after Marino. So you've got Marino, pick 27, Darrell Green, going to the Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins, 28 in that draft. In the 8th round, you have Richard Dent in this draft. Pick number 203 is Richard Dent, Hall of Fame defensive end for the Chicago Bears. And the most recent Hall of Famer in this class is Roger Craig. So the 8th Hall of Famer in this class, Roger Craig, also a Offensive Player of the Year. Part of the 49ers dynasty. So so you've got Marino, Bruce Matthews, Elway, Green, Kelly, Richard Dent, Roger Craig, Dickerson, all Hall of Famers. And then just below that, you've got guys like Henry Ellard, who was a great player, Carl Mecklenburg, who was a nice player.
Is he going to get in? Henry Ellard, is he going to get in?
I can't see it because he's another guy who's got great numbers for his time, but it's only getting harder. And given that, he's not, his case is not getting better, it's getting weaker. So I don't see it. I thought you were going to ask me about Carl Mecklenburg, who was a 3-time first-team All-Pro. He went, when they still had 12 rounds, he went in the 12th round of this draft. Wow. And he's an amazing linebacker. Chris Hinton, the player who was traded for Elway, he never gets talked about, but he was an All-Pro player for the Colts as a tackle, the player that they got back in the Elway trade. Yeah. So you've got a handful of the best players to ever play. You've got like the 12th or 13th or 14th player in this, or best player in this draft is still someone who's got a Hall of Fame case. So it is great at the top. It is great with depth. It is great everywhere. 1983 class is, for me, the best class that's ever been.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. I think one thing that I noticed in my research is that it's usually, each draft is usually strong in like 2 categories. It'll be, pass rushers or, defensive players. We'll kind of lump them together, and then it'll be a great running back class, but it'll be a bad quarterback class, a bad running back, or bad wide receiver class. And then, vice versa, you switch it up. This is one of those classes that has just about everything. It's a little weak in wide receivers, but it does have a 10,000-yard receiving guy, Henry Ellard, who's close to 14K. You got Mark Clayton, who's 9,000. So even those guys, they're not quite at the Hall of Fame level, but that's what I noticed about this class right away, was it has everything. Yeah. And that's, even
I didn't mention it, but Joey Browner is someone who has a Hall of Fame case. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro. He is, someone else who Viking fans will definitely tell you that he's snubbed for the Hall of Fame. So the depth in this class is amazing.
Yeah. 3 guys with over 100 sacks. I mean, Raiders fans will get upset you didn't mention Greg Townsend, who has 102 sacks. But yeah, just an incredible just again, across the board, every single position there is, if not a Hall of Famer, an all-time great, which you rarely see. So folks, if you're going to do your own research, you'll definitely notice this trend. It'll be like, there's 8 Hall of Famers, but the best quarterback is Jake Locker or something like that, or Blaine Gabbert. So, it just happens to work out like that. So I'll go over to, this is a similar class that I've got. I think this is maybe the number 2 class of all time, but this is my number 1. All right. It is the 1996 draft class. So Hall of Famers, we've already got 6. We've got Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, Jonathan Ogden, Brian Dawkins, Ray Lewis, and Zach Thomas. So 3 of the best defensive players of all time, maybe the best left tackle of all time in Jonathan Ogden. I mean, make the case. And 2 of the best wide receivers of all time in Terrell Owens and Marvin Harrison. Yeah. And then there's 2 guys, Willie Anderson, offensive tackle for the Bengals. He's maybe in, I think maybe at some point. Yeah. Yeah. And then Simeon Rice, another guy that is, I think has 130 sacks. So he's one of those guys that's like in that elite tier of pass rushers, but just has not quite gotten in. But some other stars in this class, we've got Eddie George, So an incredible running back during his time. Keyshawn Johnson goes number one, not quite Hall of Fame level, but a very exactly. The diva wide receiver. He wrote a freaking book about it.
Called "Throw Me the Damn Ball."
Incredible. Some other iconic players: Mike Allstott, Lawyer Malloy, Teddy Bruschi, Stephen Davis, Joe Horn. Mr. Cell Phone under the
cell phone celebration,
end zone pad. Yeah, just a very, very creative guy, and Leroy Glover, one of the better defensive, kind of hybrid DNs, D tackles. So a deep class, but this was one of those classes that it has everything except for quarterbacks. It is a horrendous quarterback class. I believe, I don't remember who even the quarterbacks were. I should probably look this up while we're talking here, but also, just so a very, very deep class with talent all over the board.
Yes. So do you want to do your first out? Do you have a honorable mentions, other classes that you struggled with? Because God. I'll give you mine, and then if you want to do yours, you could do it. So I was looking at.
We could be here all day. I have 6.
Oh yeah. when we just a little inside baseball here. So we at first when Khaled and I were looking at this, we're like, okay, let's do the first 30 years and the last 30 years. We'll just go all the way to the present time, and so that had me going into like 97 or 98, right? So there was like every class in the mid 90s was amazing. Every single one, it seemed like 95, 96, 97, 98, they were all good. So when we changed it and I was like now 92, that put all those classes in your group. And I'm like, oh my God, there are 10 classes in the top 5, basically, that you were looking at. For me, there was one that I was debating between the ones I picked and this one, and it's the 1971 class. And I love to do old school, but 71, there was 5 Hall of Famers in this class. Jack Ham, and people who don't know Jack Ham, he was another off-ball outside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steel Curtain, one of the best cover linebackers to ever play. He is a Mount Rushmore outside linebacker in that realm, the off-the-ball outside linebackers. He's one of the best who have ever played, just like Hendricks is in that same conversation. Jack Youngblood is in this class. And Jack Youngblood is, when you look up NFL tough guy in the dictionary, it's Jack Youngblood. He literally played multiple playoff games with a broken leg. He'd broken the forgive me, I can't remember whether it's the femur or which one it was, but the one that's not weight bearing in the bottom part of your leg, the smaller bone, it was broken. They taped it up, and he played 2 playoff games and the Super Bowl with a broken leg. Gosh. Oh, by the way, he also had 150 career sacks. So he is one of 7 players with 150 or more career sacks. He did it before sacks was an official stat, so it's not official, but we know they have the tape at 151 sacks.
You can go back and
and look
they've
at
done
that.
the work.
Yes, exactly. John Riggins is in this class. He was the best running back of all time, age 35 and older. I believe he had several 1,000 yards there, maybe 3,000 yard seasons after the age of 35. The Diesel, amazing player. Had Jim Plunkett in his class. We've talked about. He never made a Pro Bowl, never made an All-Pro, but two-time Super Bowl champion Jim Plunkett with his 3rd team, the Raiders, is in this class. He was the number 1 overall pick in this class. Jim Plunkett,
Heisman winner as well.
Heisman winner. Dan Dierdorf, who was an all-pro and now Hall of Fame tackle for the St. Louis Cardinals, is in this class. And then Harold Carmichael, the 6'8" or 9" wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. So they had lots of depth here. Ken Anderson is in this class, quarterback for the Bengals. So not Hall of Famer, but a lot of people think he's a Hall of Famer.
But
your guy, I'm sure your guy, Lyle Alzado, is in this class.
3 Mile Lyle.
Great. And Joe Theismann was in this class. People may not remember that he was a kind of a tweener he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins in 1971, went to the CFL to be able to play, came back and signed with the Redskins. And then of course he had his career with the Redskins, but he was picked in 1971 by the Dolphins. Another fact, maybe the kids don't know, is that the actual pronunciation of his name is not Theismann, it's Thiesman.
Yeah.
But he was changed to Theismann by the marketing team at Notre Dame to rhyme with Heisman.
Very smart. Yeah.
To rhyme with Heisman. Brilliant. To be better marketing for him. So you've got Jack Ham, Youngblood, Riggins, Dewardorf, and Carmichael as the Hall of Famers. You've got Plunkett and Theismann both have rings. Alzado is an iconic figure in the game, iconic character of the game. And Kate Anderson is someone who's also a borderline Hall of Famer as well. So that was right on the cusp for me.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the mid-90s classes, because that's the majority of my honorable mentions. I won't go through all six, but we'll say the 1993 class already has 4 Hall of Famers. Got Willie Roaf, Jerome Bettis, Michael Strahan, and Will Shields. I believe John Lynch. I don't know if did he get
He's a Hall
yet?
of Famer. Lynch is in.
Okay,
Lynch
there
is
you
in.
go.
Yeah.
So we got 5 then.
Yeah.
And then of course, you've got Drew Bledsoe in there as well. So, Hall of very good, I think.
He was people forget that he was a good player. I mean, he obviously Brady took his gig, but he was a good football player.
Yeah. But they didn't have enough depth, I think, after that for me to put him in my top 5. And then the 1995 class. So again, mid 90s.
Yeah.
You got Warren Sapp, Eric Brooks, Curtis Martin, Steve McNair, and Terrell Davis, all in this 1995 class. I believe Terrell Davis was a 5th round pick of the Broncos.
Right. Yes.
Kind of an afterthought until he became a Hall of Fame running back. So this
that
was
95
a lot of fun,
class,
just like
that 95 class. The Bucs picked 2 Hall of Famers in the first round of that class.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. The only thing that rivals that, you've got, maybe we'll do one of those like best team draft classes at one point. So you've got the Bucs, 2 guys in the first round of the same class. The Bears in 65 picked Butkus and Sayers back to back with the 3 and the 4 pick, which is insane. And then they had a bunch of bad teams. I don't know how you do that. And then the Steelers, of course, the legendary Steeler draft in 1974 that had 4 Hall of Famers and an undrafted free agent all in the same offseason, right? So they picked 4 Hall of Famers in 74, and then they signed an undrafted free agent. So 5 guys in their 74 class. But I
think you're stepping on a future podcast here. You're like,
clearly.
Too much,
we need to tune that one up.
Yeah, but this was a lot of fun. I mean, it was hard to narrow it down to 5.
Yes.
Maybe we should have just done 10 in each era, but maybe that's a different conversation.
Right.
So Mac, where can folks hear more from you and see more of your content?
Yes, well, you can go to wherever you go on social media, Football Fanstorian. I have a book out called The GOAT Rules, where I do the GOAT debate. Every era, I just framed the debate. So the eras, every position group getting down to a single player who is the greatest of all time. Going to make it into a video series, so you guys can check that out as well as that drops.
Awesome. And you can find the Football Elevated podcast on both of our streams. You can find it on the 4040 Vision podcast YouTube channel, as well as the Football Fanstorian YouTube channel. And of course, Mac shares, excuse me, a ton of clips on Instagram on both of our social media pages. So you can find us at 4040 Vision Sports on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that good stuff. Thanks again, Mac. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button wherever you are tuning in to this podcast.